Hey, welcome back everybody. PayPal and Patreon now down below if you want to support me, only do so if you actually can. And as always, if you want access to the graphs in this video and hundreds of other graphs across all kinds of similar subjects, there's a link in the description to a Drive folder where you can access all those for free at any time. So it's time for the monthly oil demand levels update for countries that release regular data, that is. The largest consumer, obviously remaining the US, averaging 20 million barrels per day of domestic consumption for the last 20 years or so, and coming in right within range again, this time just a bit under 21 at 20.8 million barrels per day. China having recently reached 17 a couple of years ago, and stopping here, it seems like this is where they're going to either peak or plateau. And this time coming in just a bit above 17 million barrels per day with this data release, up by a few tens of thousands above it. India nearing 6 million barrels per day, and during their higher consumption point of the year, earlier in the year, they almost hit it, but they backed back down, and they're heading towards their lower point of the year now in terms of their yearly cycle, their consumption patterns over the different seasons. And at the moment, they are at 5.5. Japan was once up at 6 million barrels per day. However, over the decades, as their population has aged out of activity and out of work, and as their fuel efficiency on average rapidly increased, and they utilize mass public transit a lot more, their oil consumption has declined down to closer to 3.5 in present day, this time coming in at 3.04. Russia in the USSR, at the height of it, had a demand level of about 5 million barrels per day. At the whole USSR, just Russia within the USSR, collapsed to about 2 when the USSR fell apart. And as Russia economically came back into existence over the 21st century, their oil demand levels got pretty close back up to 4. But then, following the post COVID recovery, they invaded Ukraine, and in the economic fallout since then, their consumption contracted, went down into the upper twos for a little bit, but had been coming back into the lower threes and was at or between 3.2 and 3.3 just recently. However, now it would be going down by 100,000 or 200,000 normally over the course of fall as they head towards their winter low point anyways. However, however, it has done that much sooner than normal or much more quickly than normal because of all of the strikes on Russian refineries in the country. So their consumption has now, over the last month or so, been quickly brute forced into a sudden contraction of about 10% simply by a widespread unavailability of fuels, mostly on the part of gasoline, but now that's starting to be seen with unavailability of diesel in some regions as well, which for the moment has seen them contract down from over 3.2 down to around 2.9 million barrels per day, and we'll see whether that gets pushed down any farther. South Korea in present day has leveled off for the most part around 2.8, and given their demographic setup, they'll be following Japan's trajectory pretty soon. This time they came in on one of their rare upward spikes at just over 3.02 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia fluctuates between 2 and 3 over the course of the year, as they have a much higher demand level in summer because their electricity demand is much higher, and a fair bit of their electricity is still generated from oil-fired power plants. So obviously that sends up their oil consumption during the summer, and most recently they were just under 2.6 at 2.58. Brazil came in roughly around 2.4 million barrels per day, and they've been given a bit of trouble given their data over the last year or two, as have Russia and Argentina, and one by one, more countries are adding themselves onto my difficulty list. Canada has relatively plateaued around 2.5 in present day, and this time they came in right at 2.5, rated a flat 2.5. Indonesia has exceeded and begun climbing through the 2 millions in present day. This time they came in at 2.15 million barrels per day. Germany, meanwhile, has declined from a height around 3 million decades ago down to closer to around 2 now, this time coming in just above it at 2.01. Iran had gotten up to averaging around 2 million barrels per day or a bit below it. However, during the brief conflict that lasted 2 weeks or some odd down in or back in June of this year, they dropped down as low as 800,000, but came back up from that over the summer to around 1.5, sometimes a bit above it, sometimes a bit under it. This time coming in a bit under at 1.47. Mexico used to average around 2 million barrels per day, and post-COVID crash, they have never actually returned to their prior consumption levels, only getting as high sometimes as 1.6. This time coming in at only 1.44. France post-COVID recovery has settled to averaging around 1.6, this time coming in at 1.62. The UK post-COVID recovery did not fully return to prior numbers. They came up to settling around a new average of 1.5, this time coming in down from that at 1.41. Italy, down from its height of 2 decades back, has now been averaging around 1.3 and this time came in at 1.28. Spain also averages about 1.3 usually, and they're a bit up at 1.37. Turkey in present day has grown up to averaging about 1.3, this time coming in at 1.26. Thailand is plateauing out at about 1.2 or 1.3, and this time they came in at 1.12. Singapore peaked close to 1.5 million barrels per day and has been declining since then, down closer to now usually 1.2. This time they had a bit of a jump upwards up to 1.45. Could not get data from the UAE this time, so on to Australia, who in present day averages between 1.1 and 1.2, this time coming in at 1.12. Nederland is usually now down around 900,000. They declined since 2020, on average at least post-COVID recovery, and this time they came in at 855. Taiwan averaged around a flat 1 million for a couple decades, but over the 2020s they've declined down to averaging around 900 as well, this time coming in at 823. Egypt had made it up into the 800,000s, but has stalled and declined a few times over the last 10 years, but has now been starting to resume growing in total consumption levels, this time coming in over 900 at 933,000. Could not get data from Malaysia this time. Poland has grown up to averaging around 800 or a bit below it, this time coming in at 766. Iraq in present day is usually up around the 800s, sometimes 900s. This time they're a bit down at 780,000 for their domestic consumption. Could not get data for Argentina. Nigeria in present day is up in the 600s and they've been climbing towards 700. This time they came in a bit down at 586, however. Belgium used to be around 700, but they have gradually declined down to more around 600, and this time they come in at 603. Colombia in present day is usually up around 500,000, and this time they came in a bit up above at 538,000 barrels per day. The Philippines finally released some backlog data. So, around the end of last year, they came in at 498. And then in the early part of this year, they came in at 482 for their average. And during the second quarter or so, they averaged to 498 again. So they've been staying right around their 500,000 average. Algeria in present day has grown pretty close to averaging 500,000, this time coming in at 485,000. Kazakhstan is up to averaging about 500,000 now, and this time they came in at 540. Chile has basically plateaued out at about 400,000, this time coming in at 364. Ecuador has grown to consumption levels usually a bit above 300,000, and this time they came in with a jump up again at 350. Peru, with twice Ecuador's population, has only just also reached Ecuador's same consumption levels, now averaging around 300,000, setting a new record high. a few months ago of 305,000 barrels per day, but most recently coming in at 290. Sweden has declined over time from 400 down to averaging around 300, this time coming in at 293. Greece collapsed from being in the 400s during their early 2010s economic implosion, down to now having been averaging around 300 since then. And this time they came in with a jump up at 343. Romania, averaging around 250 in present day, came in at 216,000. Portugal, averaging around 250 as well, despite only having half Romania's population, and they came in at 240. And then the 200s club, countries that usually average right around 200 in present day, sometimes a bit above it, sometimes a bit under it. Austria came in decently above usual at 250. The Czech Republic came in a bit above at 218. Hungary came in down at 181. Switzerland almost came in right on the dot at 201. Finland came in down at 178. And Norway came in a bit above at 225,000 barrels per day. All right, that's it for all the ones that got included this time. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. The link is down there in the Drive folder if you want to get these graphs or any of hundreds of other all kinds of graphs. There's also links to my Blue Sky, to my photography, and one in the top pinned comment to my cat's YouTube channel. Please go subscribe to her as well. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.